What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I want to mix it up just a little bit. I will be traveling very soon, and I want to make sure all my camera equipment's working. So I'm going to probably be shooting outside a little bit more because once I do start traveling, a lot of my videos are going to be on location. So I'm not going to be in a studio. So anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about how I retired at 49. So technically I retired at 49. However, I turned in all my stuff 2 days after my 50th birthday. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But I've had a lot of people ask me, how did you retire so young? How did you make it work? And so I want to talk a little bit about the main thing that I focused on. This was about 5 years before I retired. The main thing that I focused on that allowed me to have confidence enough to retire and know that I'd be okay. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And once again, thank you guys all for your support. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can at the TEC Show Live. Okay, so when I was saying I retired at 49, technically I retired 2 days after my 50th birthday, but I took 2 months off prior to retiring. So I was already pretty much retired at that point. I just took the 2 months off and then came back to work only one day. So my birthday is on December 28th. I came back on the 30th and turned in all my stuff, and then I was done. Okay, so how did I do it? So the main thing that I focused on is I wanted to be debt-free before I retired. That was my main focus. I was fortunate enough to work in a job where I was able to receive a pension. And by receiving a pension, I know I'm going to get a set income for the rest of my life. And so I could kind of manage my things around that as far as my investments and all that. And so my focus was to become debt-free before I retired because I couldn't retire if I still had debt. And so let me tell you how I did this, because there were a few different things that I had to do in order to become debt-free. So the first thing, I had a car payment at the time. And so basically when I paid my car payment off, and that was about 6.5 years ago, I paid off my car, and I decided at that point not to get a new car. I have the car that I'm in right now is the same car that I had back then, and I chose not to get anything new, because if I got something new, then that's just more debt that I would have to pay back. And so I made that decision, and the car was fine. The car's still fine now. Of course, I have little issues here and there that I have to go get fixed, but it still runs. It's a very reliable vehicle, so I'm happy with that. So that was the first thing. Now, when I paid my car off, there's one thing that I did, and I didn't do it on purpose, but it became a routine for me when it was actually a good routine. I used to always have on my calendar set for the 10th of every month. The 10th of every month, that's when I owed my car payment. It was $320. So every month on the 10th, I get that reminder that I need to pay my car payment. And so after I paid my car off, I left it on the calendar. So the 10th of every month, I would get that same notification saying that you need to pay your car off. And it was kind of a relief at first. I was thinking, wow, I paid my car off, I don't have to worry about it. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, you know what? This $320 I have now that I didn't have before when I had to pay my car off, and so I should be putting that $320 towards something else. And so that's when I really started focusing on paying down my debt. And so the first thing that I tackled were my credit cards. So I wanted to make sure that I was paying my credit cards all off, okay? At that time, I still had some debt on my credit cards, and most of it, there's a lot of people that have debt on credit cards. And so I focused on the highest interest credit cards first. I paid those off. With that $320, I was putting that towards paying off my credit cards. So I wasn't paying the minimum anymore. And I know the kind of, some people are taught, yeah, just pay the minimum. It actually increases your credit score. That's not true, but that's kind of the way that people think about it. You don't have to pay it all off. Now I'm in the routine of I pay my credit cards off every month in full. I never carry a balance. But back then I was carrying a balance. So I was paying it off. I was using that $320, putting it towards my credit cards, the credit cards that had the highest interest. And then eventually at the time I had about 3 credit cards. Eventually I was able to bring those cards down and pay those cards all off. So that was the second thing there. So first I focused on my car payment, got that paid all off, took that $320 and started paying it towards my credit cards, got my credit cards paid off, And then I started to focus on my student loans. Now, my student loans at the time, I still owed over $20,000. And I started with about $27,000, but I took my time paying it. I was put it on deferment for a while and all this. And so for a long time, I was paying more interest than actual principal. So I was paying more interest than I was actually paying to bring down the student loan. And so that was my next feat. That's what I wanted to really focus on. And so now I don't have credit card debt anymore. So I don't have to pay anything on the credit cards every month, as well as when it came to my car payment, I didn't have that to pay that $320 anymore. So I took all that money and I started focusing on my student loans. When it came to my student loans, I was really nervous about that. And it got to a point where I didn't even want to look at the balance because it was just bothering me, the fact that I had this much debt and I hadn't paid it off. And at this point, we're talking about 15 years that I had the student loan and it's not paid off yet. And looking at it, it really, really gave me anxiety. So I got to the point where I did start paying larger payments towards my student loans. And eventually I got to a point where I dropped it down. I remember when I dropped it under $10,000. And at that point, I had some other money coming in. I had side hustles and things that I was doing. And so I had enough money to just pay that lump sum. And it was about I think it was $9,000. So $9,000, I just put that in there and just paid it off. And when I paid it off, I was so happy. I mean, it really, really made me feel good to pay the student loans off. And so at that point, I was debt free. I didn't have a house at the time. I have a house now, but I didn't have a house at that time. And so I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any monthly payments other than my electricity and all that stuff. I didn't have any monthly payments. Another thing that I focused on too, and actually this is where I started. Even before the car payments, I started looking at my subscriptions. I had subscriptions to a lot of different things, and I didn't even realize, because you know how it's just automatic auto pay. And so the streaming services, the only streaming service that I kept was Netflix, and then I had Amazon, so Amazon Prime. Those are the only two subscriptions that I had. Everything else I got rid of, because before you know it, you look up and you have all these different subscriptions. That could be $200, $300 in subscription fees that you're paying every month, and you don't even really realize it, because some of this stuff you're not using on a regular basis, and they're just automatically taking the money out of your account, and you're not knowing about it. So that was the situation. Subscriptions first, then I looked at the car payments. I was able to pay my car off. Once I paid my car off, no new car. And then I focused on the other two things, credit cards as well as the student loans. And then once I became debt free, that's when I realized, okay, you know what? I can make this happen. I can actually retire. And what I did is, because I knew I was going to be pulling that pension in, and I knew the amount that I was going to be pulling in, I started, even before that, I was doing different side hustle jobs. And that's how I paid off my student loans, with the side hustle jobs. I was doing photography. I was doing video stuff like this, YouTube and things like that. And so I knew at that point how much money I would need to survive, because I ended up buying a house. So I knew how much money my mortgage was. I knew how much money I was going to be pulling in when it came to my pension. And then I just needed a little extra spending cash, and that would be side hustles. And so my whole plan at that time was to retire and then do side hustles. Do a part-time job if I need to do a part-time job. At this point, I don't need to do it. I can kind of do the little side hustles and make money, and I'm comfortable. Plus, I had investments, and I still have these investments, and I'm still actually investing even more now. And so I have that for an emergency fund if I need to pull that. And so right now, I haven't had to touch any of my investments, so that's good. So the longer I let those investments mature, the more money that I'll have when I get older, and I can start pulling those out. So that's another good thing there. And so if I can give you one word of advice, tackle your debt. Make sure you're debt free. If you're debt free, things really open up for you and you have more opportunity. And once I became debt free, another thing that I didn't mention is I had more money to actually invest. And so I didn't have to worry about the car payments and the credit cards and all that stuff. And so I was investing even more money right before I retired. And that's another thing you want to focus on too, is make sure your investments are in order and see if you can double up on your investments before you retire. And so that's how I did it. And right now everything is great. I mean, I've been retired for about a year and a half now. No problems, no issues at all financially. And so I've had people ask me the question, how did you retire so young? That's how I did it. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.